UFC Fight Night Paris, Moicano versus Saint Denis is officially in the books, which means it is time for me to give my full card recap and analysis. We will be discussing every single fight that went down on the card. And I will start with the main event, and then we'll work our way down to the first fight of the evening because we have a lot to unpack, specifically in the main event, but some of the other fights that took place on the main card. But man, from top to bottom, I thought this was a great event, right? Every time the UFC goes to France, goes to Paris, they put on an outstanding event. It's usually very entertaining. The crowd is electric, and I love the experience in terms of watching through, the TV, the energy. You could just feel it. And we had a little bit of everything on this card, right? We had controversy, we had some possible robberies, we had, some crazy KOs, we had a little bit of a sour taste left in our mouth following the main event. But we can't take anything away from Renato Moicano, so the time codes will be down below. Let's hop into this. The main event of the evening, Renato Moicano, Benoit Saint Denis. Coming into this fight, I was like, man, I don't really know too much of what to expect here because Benoit Saint Denis, there were a lot of questions for me, right? We know that he is a savage. We know he's gritty. We know he's powerful. We know he's very fun. But was that fight against Dustin Poirier with the gas tank diminishing? Was that fight a little bit of a fluke? Was he maybe a little bit overhyped? And we had a lot of thoughts coming into this, and what we saw was a very nasty Renato Moicano that showed up. That's just really what this came down to, was Renato, he was a machine in there. He was not coming into France to mess around. He came in there with a point to prove. He was nasty, he was aggressive, and he was very, very mean in that first round, which he accumulated so much damage to where Benoit Saint Denis, it was just a matter of time before the doctor was going to step in and stop this. I mean, he had multiple cuts over his eye. His eyes were damn near both swollen shut to where we eventually got the stoppage. But man, Moicano, his striking looked clean, it looked fast, it looked technical, and the thing with Moicano is we've seen some, even in his last outing at UFC 300, we've seen he can get battered around, he gets beat up, but what we know about him is he will not quit and he will find a way to win. I call him Gritty Moicano, man, because look, he finds a way to get the job done. What we saw tonight, we didn't see Gritty Moicano. We saw Machine Moicano. This dude just absolutely dominated the first round. I mean, that was probably a 10-8 round. I mean, he absolutely butchered Benoit Saint Denis, which I did not see coming in this matchup. I thought that Saint Denis was going to have more power than Moicano. I thought that he was going to be able to defend the takedowns. And what we've seen from Renato, he gets better and better every time out. This dude is aging in reverse. He called out Paddy Pimblett, Dan Hooker. This dude's like, just give me somebody and I'll run through him. And at this point, how can you pick against the guy? How can you pick against Moicano? Every time he goes in there, he's improving. His striking is clean. He was in there looking great on the feet against Saint Denis. And we saw in the second round, Benoit Saint Denis started to kind of pour it on a little bit. He started to actually build a little bit in the second round. I think that, maybe Renato was trying to get his win back a little bit. But man, BSD, a tough way to go out in this matchup. He took so much damage in the first round. I was concerned when he came back to the store. I'm like, we got multiple cuts here. We got the eyes swelling shut. And whenever the eyes start to swell, you can pick at the eyes, just like what Moicano was doing. Pick at those cuts, bust them open. And eventually the doctor is probably going to have to get involved, especially when it's a 5-round fight. But nonetheless, unbelievable performance by Renato Moicano. Very dominant first round. Second round, Benoit Saint Denis looked very good. However, Moicano, dude's dangerous, man. Dude is dangerous. He's constantly improving. Looks like a problem in the division. Big win for Money Moicano to go into France and take out their dude in BSD. Moving on, co-main event of the evening between Nassourdine Imavov and Brendan Allen. This fight went very similar to kind of what I was thinking we were going to see. Look, Nassourdine Imavov is a very well-rounded fighter. When you watch him fight, you can tell he kind of fights a little bit like Silgan. He's got the fast in and out movement. He's got a very, very educated lead hand. What I mean by that, he's got a very active and accurate lead hand. He completely understands how to utilize the jab. He utilizes it very well. He just kind of picks at you with it, and we saw him having a lot of success with that in the second and third round. But in the first, Brendan Allen, I mean, he came out, and that was about as good of a first round as you could hope for if you're Brendan Allen. Comes out, secures a takedown, has Imavov flat on his back. Allen's getting in half guard. He's looking for, he's transitioning into dominant positions, and he completely controlled Imavov in the first round. And then after that, it seemed like something was maybe a little bit off with Brendan in this fight. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. but Imavov just looked way quicker in the second and third rounds, which I had said coming into this, Imavov is a much faster and more explosive fighter, but what we've seen from Ailin is a lot of improvements, right? He has good grappling, he's got very good submissions, he was not busy enough in the first round when he was on top of Nassourdine Imavov. I thought he should have been looking for more ground and pound, he should have been trying to find a submission, because as that fight played out, what we have seen from Brendan Ailin is he starts fast, he usually does very well early in the fight, and then as it plays out, as the fight starts to progress, he starts to fatigue a little bit, and he allows his opponents to kind of get back into the fight, like what we've seen in his past outings against Chris Curtis and some of his other fights. But man, a little bit of a fraudulent run. I know we were talking about here on our channel, on my channel, about Brendan Ailin, man, because look, the dude is a good fighter. He has improved, but you just see that as he starts to progress up the rankings, it seems like, you know, he barely beat Chris Curtis, right? A lot of people kind of thought that was controversial, and he goes out there tonight, had a very good first round, but then you just got to see Imavov get into the fight. He started to defend the takedowns very well. His sprawls were excellent, and what we have seen from Imavov is constant improvement. And I know a lot of people like to rip on him, right? A lot of people, it's easy to rip on Nassourdine. That seems like the popular thing to do in the community. I'm not going to do that. This guy is absolutely spectacular. He's dangerous on the feet. He's fast. He's got good footwork. He's very good. He's just a very good overall striker. My criticism of Imavov in the past has been, look, just pull the trigger on the feet. Stop being so hesitant. And what we saw tonight was him dig his feet in, be willing to sit in the pocket and land some of those shots. And he was landing some good shots on Brendan Ailin. He was accumulating some damage. But for me, this was a very, very, very good fight by Imavov, because there's not much you could do when some guy's just constantly diving for your legs, right? There's only so much Imavov can do. But what we saw was good takedown defense. We saw that he is able to grapple with a dangerous submission guy like Brendan Ailin. Very impressive performance by Imavov next. I know he says he wants a title shot, but we have Strickland waiting in the wings, the winner of Whitaker versus Chimaev. I would not be surprised if we see Imavov versus Caio Borralho next, or a possible Israel Adesanya matchup. But nonetheless, Nassourdine Imavov is one fight away, in my opinion, from a title shot. He is spectacular. He's very well-rounded. This was a big showing for him in France. Big win for Nassourdine Imavov. Moving on here, we have William Gomis and Joanderson Brito. I thought this was a robbery. Look, I thought that this was a close fight. I thought that William Gomis landed some very good shots, but I thought Joanderson Brito won two rounds out of the three. And look, William Gomis, coming into this fight, I was like, look, you got the pinpoint guy in William Gomis who's going to be very technical, try to pick his shots. And then you have Brito, who's a guy who's just going to kind of throw caution to the wind, march forward, kind of get a little reckless and be willing to put himself in the line of fire. And that's kind of the fight that we saw. We saw Brito get reckless. We saw him mix in the takedowns. We saw him have William Gomis in a lot of trouble. He was, he was looking for submissions. He had him in some submissions. He was dominating in terms of the top position. But the judges, for some reason, gave it to William Gomis. I know he landed some damaging shots. Maybe they didn't see Brito, his grappling as being dangerous, or I really don't know. I really thought that Brito won this fight, but nonetheless, it was a very interesting fight, right? Because with Gomis, he's a dude that's on an absolute tear right now. He's got pinpoint striking. His grappling is improved. And Brito, we know, he's a dog. Fighting out of the shoot-to-box gym, he moves forward. He's aggressive. He's dangerous. He throws caution to the wind. And anybody that does that is going to be a very tough opponent to deal with. But like I said, I thought Brito won the fight. I thought it was a bad decision by the judges. Moving on, Kevin Jousett, Bryan Battle. Oh, man. I've been waiting to talk about this one, man, because look, Bryan Battle, this fight went pretty much exactly how I expected. I thought Bryan Battle was going to get this thing done by finish, but look, I didn't expect the first round that we saw from Bryan Battle. I didn't expect him to be so grapple heavy. I didn't really understand that, to be quite honest with you, because after the grappling exchanges in the first round, when they separated, Bryan looked very fatigued. He looked very tired, and Kevin Jousett looked a little bit like the fresher fighter. But I think maybe the game plan of Bryan Battle was he knows that Jousett is very technical. Those guys at City Kickboxing, they're very smooth. They're very technical on the feet, and I think he tried to wear on Kevin a little bit, build up some of the lactic acid to where that, that clean striking becomes a little bit more sloppy and bring him into a little bit of a dogfight. And what we saw from Bryan Do Bronx Battle, man, the dude gets the game. Everybody's kind of like, you're in a position to where you either fuck with Bryan Battle and you like him, or you don't like him at all. And he gets the game, man. He understands that, look, I can't just go in there and put on performances and do this and do that. I have to take it to the next level. He dyes his hair. He comes out. He's flipping off the crowd. He makes the France fans enemies. And look, he has absolutely turned himself into a character, more of a savage villain type of role. The dude gets the marketing game. Very well played by Bryan Battle. He's got a huge matchup next coming to him next. I think that maybe he gets a Carlos Prates type of matchup. Maybe he somehow lands an MVP type of fight. But Bryan Battle, the dude is legit coming off of the Ultimate Fighter. I liked him on the Ultimate Fighter. I'm glad he got rid of that damn nickname. I think he was called like Pooh Bear or something. He's now the Butcher. Dyes his hair blonde, coming out like Charles Oliveira. The dude's scrappy. He's well-rounded. He's dangerous. Bryan Battle's a stud, man. I really like what we're seeing from him. Big things are ahead for Mr. Battle. Moving on. Morgan Charriere and Gabriel Miranda. Morgan Charriere coming out looking like an absolute savage, getting a spectacular finish over Gabriel Miranda. And coming into this fight, man, I was like, look, Morgan just seems like he's firing on all cylinders. He's clean on the feet. He's technical. He understands the striking aspect of things. And he's just improving overall as a mixed martial artist, right? I think he's just reached his 20th win. He's got 10 losses on his record. And I'm like, damn, this dude, he's almost kind of got like a journeyman record. But when you watch him fight, the dude is so clean and so skilled. And I'm like, how does he have a record like this? It was confusing to me. But when you go back and you roll the tape, the dude is a savage. He's very technical. He's very clean. And I just thought that Gabriel Miranda here was just more of a layup type of matchup for Morgan to get him exactly what happened was what the UFC envisioned. Charriere going in there, getting a devastating knockout, taking the microphone, getting the crowd fired up. Morgan Charriere is looking like an absolute problem in the featherweight division. He's mean, he's technical, he's ferocious. And to me, Gabriel Miranda was just kind of a sitting duck in this matchup, and it was just a matter of time before Charriere was able to get him out of there. Great performance, unbelievable KO by Morgan. Moving on, Firas Ziam and Matt Steamroller Frevola. This was surprising to me. This was very surprising to me from what we saw from Firas Ziam. And I feel like every time everyone's kind of like, look, Firas Ziam, who's he finished, man? He doesn't have that great of power. He's more of a long-rangey kind of pick his shots type of striker. And he says, hold my beer, man. Watch this. And he goes out there, and he even said, he's like, I think I'm going to land a knee on this dude and be able to get him out of there. And he goes out in the third round, lands a nasty knee against Matt Frevola that should get him a $50K performance of the night bonus. This was an unbelievable performance for Firas Ziam, because whenever the UFC gives you the opportunity to fight in front of your fan base, if it's in your country, your hometown, whatever it is, it's a big moment for you. There's a lot of emotions. The crowd is going to be cheering you on, and sometimes you can suffer from a big adrenaline dump. Sometimes maybe you fight a little out of character. And what we saw from Ziam was he was dialed in from the minute the fight started. And with Matt Frevola, he's a well-rounded guy. He's got a good skill set. He's able to kind of, bring you into his world, which becomes kind of a bar fight, more of a technical kind of brawl. And he loops and wings a lot of his shots, but he does have good grappling and he's got power. But what we saw from Ziam was a very calculated and patient guy, which is very encouraging moving forward for Ziam, because what we've seen before, he's a little hesitant to pull the trigger. He's got very sharp striking. He's very clean, but maybe he's not active enough. And what we saw in this fight, he was able to hurt Matt Frevola. He was able to sting him, but then he was very patient in picking his shots. He didn't rush the finish. He didn't gas himself out looking, to go all in and get him out of there right away. This was a very mature and impressive win by Firas Ziam. This was a very, very big performance for him in France in front of his crowd to go out there and get a devastating, one of the knockouts, if not the KO of the year. I mean, it's going to be hard because of Max Holloway's KO over Gaethje, but this was an unbelievable KO by Ziam. He picked his shots well. He was just beating Frevola to the punch because, man, whenever you're looping on your shots like Matt Frevola and you go in there against a technical pinpoint striker, the guy that's throwing the straight shots down the middle is going to land on the chin first before you do just about every single time, right? That's just kind of like science and the way things work. The straight shot is going to beat the looping shot. Spectacular performance by Firas Ziam. Very, very mature performance of Ziam to not rush the finish, be patient, pick his shots. Very well done by Ziam. And unfortunately for Matt Frevola, getting KO'd in back-to-back fights by French dudes, that's a tough pill to swallow, man. Matt Frevola can't beat the French. Moving on. We have Ailin Cutelaba and Ivan Erslan. This was one of the most bizarre fights of the evening. And what I mean is Ailin Cutelaba, to me, he was clearly up in this fight heading into the third round. And Ivan's corner's like, look, man, you got to do something. You're down. And Erslan says, hold my beer, dog. Watch this. I'm going to lay and pray in the third round and hope for a decision. And then when Bruce Buffer says, Ivan, I'm going to stick my hands up in the air and think he said Ivan. How the hell do you think that you won that fight, Erslan? I don't even know how a judge gave him the fight at all. Is absolutely mind-blowing to me. Ailin Cutelaba, whenever his back is to the wall, there's two things we know about Cutelaba. When his back is to the wall, he's going to show up. And the second thing is, he is always going to bring it. You're never going to have to worry about Cutelaba not showing up and wanting to actually fight somebody. And what we saw was a calculated Ailin Cutelaba. And I was like, if he's going to win this fight, you know, he's lost a few. He's kind of looking like he's on his way out of the UFC here. He goes in and mixes everything together and basically just said, I need to do whatever the hell it takes to walk out of here with a victory. He did just that. I think that the UFC is going to keep him around because, one, he's usually always in an entertaining fight, right? This one maybe a little bit more boring because he just had to have the win. But also, unfortunately for his sake, I think that they're going to use him a little bit as a gatekeeper for the light heavyweight division for some of these prospects that the UFC is grooming. But a very good performance by Cutelaba to get the win. Ivan Erslan, he showed some positive things, right? I mean, I know that this was kind of a big moment for him getting his start in the UFC. Maybe he bounces back. But what we saw from Ivan, man, I was incredibly disappointed. I thought that going in there with Cutelaba, I know Cutelaba is a very experienced guy in the UFC, but he's not a world beater. Right, he's not a world beater. He's got a winging right hand. He kind of wings on his shots. He's got decent grappling. I thought this was a very winnable fight for Ivan. And if he's not going to be able to beat Ailin Cutelaba, and considering Ivan, I believe, is 32 years of age, doesn't look like he's going to have that bright of a career inside of the UFC. Could be wrong there, but I don't think it's looking too good for Erslan moving forward. Moving on, we have Umar Sy and Dawoon Jung. This was interesting because I thought Sy was going to win this fight, and I thought it was going to look kind of similar but yet different than the way it went down. I mean, the dude lands some good shots on the feet and is like, let me resort to the grappling. It's like, dog, you had Jung hurt on the feet. Why don't you just try to put him out that way? But the most important thing for Sy in this matchup was to come out of there with a victory. He did just that. We saw that he could do everything. We knew coming into this that he probably had an advantage when it came to the grappling. He's got good grappling. His striking is coming along. And in there against Jung, we knew Jung's got good power, right? He is not an easy person to just go in there and put away. So that was kind of my fear. Whenever we see these young guys on the rise, they're hungry. The UFC's like, this is that guy. He's on the rise here. Look out. And they get thrown in there with a veteran. Sometimes the veteran presence just tends to take over. They take that prospect into the later rounds, into that deep water. They wear on them. They make them tired. And the first thing to usually go is the gas tank. And then we usually see that veteran take over and win the fight. But we saw that Sy is poised. He's got a well-rounded skill set. This dude's going to be a problem in the light heavyweight division. He went in there. He got the job done, although I thought that he was going to be able to get the finish, and I think if he kept that on the feet, maybe he's able to get a finish, but he got the win. That's the most important thing. Nice performance by Sy. Moving on. Ludovic Klein versus Roosevelt Roberts. I think that maybe we're all surprised. Maybe it's just me. I was completely shocked at how well Roosevelt Roberts looked in this, or how good he looked in this fight. Look, Ludovic Klein, he's an absolute savage in the lightweight division. This dude is a contender on the rise. He's got phenomenal striking. We've seen that the grappling is coming along to where he's a very well-rounded fighter at this point. He's got good power. He's gritty. He's tough. He's durable. He's able to mix things together very well. And Roberts basically had nothing to lose coming into this fight. I mean, you see the odds on here. I don't know if these are the exact odds right before, up to fight time. But dude, I mean, Roberts went in there and he looked good. His hands look clean. He looked fast. He kind of reminds me of Kevin Holland in there. He's kind of tall and long for the weight class. He's got a good straight right hand down the middle. He was landing that 1-2 basically at will. He was busting up Klein a little bit. But what we saw from Ludovic Klein was the maturity, was that he has a lot of ring time inside the UFC, inside of MMA period, the whereabouts to do whatever it took to win the fight. I think he underestimated Roberts a little bit. He's like, damn, this dude's fast on the feet. He's long. long, he's rangy, he's fast. I'm going to have to mix things together and do what I can to win the fight, but nonetheless, good performance by Ludovic Klein. I think that whenever we see a fighter who's known for their striking or known for their grappling, whenever they can go in there, mix it all together, put everything together and come out of there with a hard-fought victory, it says a lot. Ludovic Klein, not an easy win, even though he won unanimously. It was I thought it was a much tougher battle than maybe he and a lot of people anticipated. Big win for Ludovic Klein. Moving on. Taylor Lapilus and Vince Morales. This was an action-packed fight, man. This was an action-packed fight, and it looked a little similar to kind of what I thought. Look, Taylor Lapilus, he's an absolute stud. I think that he has very good striking. He's smooth on the feet. He's fast. He's got good timing. And Vince Morales, he's someone that's kind of just been on the outs. You know, he was in the UFC, outside the UFC. He's just kind of bounced around and then got on a little bit of a hot streak, got himself kind of back in the win column. And then he came into a matchup here where it just seemed like the UFC was tossing Lapilus a sacrificial lamb a little bit, right? Trying to hand him a layup here. But Vince said, look, man, I'm going to march forward. I'm going to be relentless. I'm going to try to, I know Lapilus is a little faster than me. He's a little bit more technical. But if I could drag him into the deep water, if I can make this a dirty, grimy type of fight and wear on him and take him into the later rounds, maybe I give myself a chance. Even though Lapilus's cardio held up, we could see Morales. He just kept moving forward, kept putting his foot on the gas. But man, Lapilus, dude's dangerous. The dude is technical. He's fun to watch. He's got a good style. This was a big win from Taylor Lapilus because not only did he get a win in France in front of his hometown, but it was a tough fight. Even though he won unanimously, I thought that Morales, he really brought it, man. He surprised me a little bit. I thought that this was going to be a lot more one-sided than it was. Even though Lapilus convincingly won the fight, I think Morales surprised some people. His gas tank, his durability, the way he was pushing forward. Impressive victory by Taylor Lapilus. Big things are ahead for this guy in the stacked bantamweight division. Moving on. Ailin Perez and Daria Zelenziakova. This fight went pretty much how I know a lot of us expected it to go. Minus the twerking in Daria's face after the W. That was very disrespectful. But Ailin Perez, man, look, we all joke about the OnlyFans, the twerking, and all that kind of stuff. But look, this woman has skills, man. She has skills. She's got very good grappling. She's got good submissions. She's got good wrestling. And the entries to her takedowns, they were very impressive. She was peppering a couple shots on the feet, and she would just kind of bait out a big shot of Daria. And the minute Daria threw a shot, she dipped right underneath, got to the body lock, got to the takedown. And we saw whenever she was able to take her down and get in that top position, Ailin Perez just shows her grappling is very good, and she was able to get the submission. This was a very, very good performance by Perez. It's unfortunate that she missed weight because that kind of puts a little bit of an asterisk next to it. But man, moving forward, Ailin Perez is a real problem in the bantamweight division because, like we know in women's MMA, you can climb the rankings really fast. If you could twerk a little bit, if you could knock some people out, or you could do something entertaining, you are going to stand out in WMMA. Ailin Perez is doing just that. And I see online she called out Tracy Cortez. We'll see if Cortez accepts that call out because Perez is in the rankings. She's got good grappling. Her striking seems to improve a little bit. But overall, this was a huge win by Ailin Perez. Not only to go out there and get the win, but to get a finish inside the first round against a good striker in Daria. Good performance by Ailin Perez. I'll be curious to see what happens with her next because this was a big win for her. Moving on. Daniel Barez and Victor Altamirano. I was surprised with this fight, and I'll tell you why I was surprised. Look, Daniel Barez, he basically just turned this into a boxing match. Like the thing with Victor Altamirano is he's got a very weird fighting style. One, he has zero boxing. His hands are atrocious. He has awful boxing defense. That is, a lot of these guys that have that karate heavy style or a taekwondo heavy style, a lot of them do not have the best boxing. They don't have the best boxing defense, and he was very exposed in this matchup. And what Daniel Barez showed is if I extend the combinations and I get to my right hand, I'm going to be able to hurt Victor Altamirano. He hurt him in basically every single round with a nasty right hand. And the thing with Victor, I thought we were going to see him mix in the grappling. For him to win this fight, I mean, he was the favorite for a reason coming into this. If you're able to take down Daniel Barez and control him from that top position, he accepts sitting on his back. He accepts trying to play guard off his back. And I thought that we were going to see Victor come in. He was going to spam the left high kick, mix in his little, hunky-dory kind of spinning around, doing the helicopter in there, and then was eventually going to resort to the grappling. But we saw him shoot for, I think, one takedown, and it was a blind shot that he took, and Barez easily defended it. This was a very good performance by Barez. He pushed forward the entire time, turned it into a boxing match. Outside of getting clipped by, a spinning shot in the third round, Daniel Barez looked really, really good in this fight. And Victor Altamirano, that is a devastating loss for him moving forward. Big win by Daniel Barez, man, because these guys coming out of Spain, you got Joel Alvarez, you got Ilia Topuria. These dudes are absolute savages. Barez hands look clean. He looked sharp. He turned. He just made Victor box. He took away the kicks. He had to eat some kicks to get to the inside, but when he did, you just saw the boxing deficiency in Victor Altamirano in this matchup. And the choice to not wrestle and not try to force the issue with the grappling, very shocking to me. That's what I thought Victor was going to do in this matchup. That was shocking to me. Moving on. Nora Cannoli and Jacqueline Cavalcanti. This fight went almost exactly how I predicted it. I said, look, man, Cavalcanti, she has the ability to finish people, but she is a decision machine, and if it goes to a split decision, she's going to get the nod. She just has her way with winning split decisions. We saw the fight before against Nunes. She's a long-rangey striker. She throws very good, clean shots down the middle. She's very technical. Sometimes my hesitation with her is she doesn't open up enough. She doesn't trust her skills enough. And in this fight, we saw that she opened up at times and then was a little reluctant to open up at times, which a little bit of that has to do with the power of Nora. We had some questions with Nora coming into this in terms of the strength of schedule. But man, this was a big win for Jacqueline Cavalcanti because not only did she get the win, and that's 2 in a row, one off of Nunes and one off of Nora, who are both power punchers, but this was on short notice. She goes to France in short notice and takes on Nora in her home country and gets the win. Very big win for Jacqueline Cavalcanti. She's very clean on the feet. I think that she's fun to watch. She has to be more aggressive because if you're just banking on going to split decisions to continue to get victories, I don't know. It's not very exciting, and you're rolling the dice every single time that you do that. But to finish things up, we have Oki and Chris Duncan. Man, this fight went how I thought, basically how I thought. Look, I thought Oki was going to be able to get this thing done, but I re-listened to my breakdown before the fight, so I was like, dude, I should have picked Chris Duncan. I basically said exactly why you should pick Chris Duncan and not why you should pick Oki, because look, Oki's fast on the feet. He's got good striking. He's got a good jab, and the thing with Duncan, he's there to be hit. He's kind of like a moving heavy bag. He doesn't have a lot of head movement. He doesn't have very good defense, but Oki's got power. He's able to move forward. And what we saw is exactly what Chris Duncan is capable of, turning it into a mixed martial arts contest, wearing on you, making you tired, turning it into just a full-on MMA fight. It's exactly what he did. We saw Oki try to shoot for some takedowns. I didn't think that was very wise. He was starting to, kind of let loose with the striking, landing some good shots, started to maybe fatigue a little bit, gets caught in a guillotine by Duncan, falls asleep. Duncan's like, hey, ref, you might want to pull him off. This dude's asleep. And, because, he kept giving, it was just an unbelievable performance by Chris Duncan because he was getting tagged up, man. And I feel like we see that in a lot of these Duncan performances. He's getting tagged up, he's getting picked apart, and then he just kind of takes the fight to where he feels comfortable or to where he feels he has an advantage. Big win for Chris Duncan. Disappointing for Oki because if he was going to lose, that's exactly how I saw him losing this fight. But if you guys enjoyed this, give it a like, comment your thoughts on this event down below, subscribe to the channel, help me out. I would appreciate it. See you next time.